Hey, what is going on, everybody? I hope all of you guys are doing well. Want to welcome you back to another movie review. And if you guys seen the last two reviews, then you know where this review is going. Today, I'm going to be reviewing Porky's Revenge, which is Porky's 3, Porky's Revenge, Porky's 3, Porky's Revenge, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter how many titles it has. This one was released in what is it, 1985, I believe. So yeah, so it was released in 1985, and of course, Porky's 2 was released in 1983. So there wasn't really, I guess there was a lot of success because it seemed like there wasn't much of a gap between the movies. Porky's being in 81, and then in 83, a year, maybe a little over a year later, we get a sequel. And then after a year of not having a film, and then in 85, we get another sequel. We haven't had anything since. And I feel like that's a good thing, but also I would have loved to see a Porky's 4. Maybe it's like passing the torch type of thing, kind of similar to like Revenge of the Nerds 3. But I am still grateful for what we have. So Porky's Revenge, in this film, they're seniors, they're graduating. And of course, the shenanigans that go on in the other two films kind of go on in this. We find out Porky is back. We find out that he made a casino on a boat. And then, of course, he has his daughter, who ends up meeting Meat in the film, and she kind of hooks up with him, and Porky has this idea to basically have him be married to her. After the guys tried to basically tell Porky they would throw the championship game that they have. They did this because they're trying to take photos, kind of get Porky in trouble. But little things backfired when I got caught. So they try to do everything they can. And basically, the guys have to go and do what they can to help their friend before he ends up, marrying Porky's daughter. Not a whole lot going on in this one. I still enjoyed it. Can you say it's the weakest out of the series? In a way, you can, but I feel like it's just as equally. Let me rephrase that. I think it's as equally as good as the other two films. It's got its shenanigans. Majority of the cast comes back. The actor who plays the cop, he's not in this. He was in the other two films. The blonde hair guy that they have, he's the one that gets kind of beat up in the first film. He is in the second, but he's not in this. So a lot of them, unfortunately, did not return. You still have more of your bigger characters in here, and just a lot more going on, pulling the pranks on them and things like that. And then you have, of course, Meat, and this film is heavily focused on the character of Meat, not Pee-wee. I mean, Pee-wee still has his moments, but like the first and second film, well, more like the first film, I guess you could put in a way, it focused on Pee-wee. Second film, it kind of, in a way, but it also focused on everybody else. This one focuses on Meat a lot more. And, he's got a teacher who tries to fail him, and they try to, blackmail the teacher. So there's a lot going on in this film, but it blends really well, kind of similar to the other two films. So, yeah, there's just a lot going on in the film, but it's not, it doesn't take you out of the film. I think it blends everything well. And that's the one thing I find unique about the Porky's trilogy, is that everything blends really well. It's almost like when I watch this, I'm not watching a film that came out different years. It's almost like I'm watching a film that I'm watching what happens the next day after each other. And you can tell they're kind of seniors in the first and second film. Excuse me. But it's almost like Porky's is one day, then Porky's 2 the next day, of course, is the next day after the ending of the first film. And then I feel like this is like your third or fourth day in the same week that you're watching. So it's, in a way, it's kind of, and that's kind of how I feel when I watch these movies. It's like I'm watching events happen within a week. That's kind of the best way to sum it up. But yeah, Porky's Revenge, I thought, was really decent and enjoyable. And to me, I think the trilogy is one of those rare occasions where they are all just as equally good. Yes, I do prefer maybe one of the sequels over the other films, but that's just me personally. But I think it's a fun trilogy. Again, it's one of those type of films that to this day probably could not be made, which is a lot of movies that came out in the 80s. We were able to get away with a lot in the 80s and 90s. Um, but you could tell, I think American Pie took a lot of influences. I think whoever wrote the script was a fan of Porky's, and took, things from those films and kind of made it its own for American Pie, because I do see a lot of like similarities when it comes to it. Um, the actors are all doing things to this day, which is really good. And unfortunately, we have lost some actors over the years. Um, so it would have been nice to see a reunion. I don't think there's ever been a reunion. Other like Revenge of the Nerds, you always see that there's reunions, but unfortunately, Porky's does not. Um, I like the setting. It takes place in the 50s. I like the music. I think the music's great. Um, I like the fun fact that it was filmed in Miami, and considering I used to live near Miami when I was younger, I of course I wasn't big into movies at that time, but if I had been, that would have been something I would have definitely would have been great to see the locations. Now I will let you guys know this. I will probably end up doing a filming location in the near future because if you are a fan of Jaws 2, Jaws 2 was actually filmed in Destin, Florida and Navarre, Florida, which I just so happen to live near. It's about a 30 to 45-minute drive. I did my research on it and wasn't even aware that Jaws 2 had been filmed near me. So yeah, a little cool movie location. I always get jealous of people who go to like filming locations or they live near them. And it's like, man, I wish I could do that. Well, when I was doing my research for Porky's, Jaws 2 came up, and yeah, I live near the area that they filmed Jaws 2. So I will hopefully be doing film locations and kind of doing comparisons. I think that would be cool to do. So yeah, keep an eye out with that. I'm going to try to schedule that, hopefully sometime this year. But let me know what your thoughts are on the Porky's trilogy. Do you guys love these films? Are they classics? Are they films you enjoy? I've always enjoyed them. I've always had a good time with them, and it was nice to revisit the trilogy. I actually did last night. I watched both of these back to back, and then the night before I did Porky's. Yeah, it was great to revisit these films. So let me know what your thoughts are down below. If you haven't seen them, give them a watch. I think you guys will have a good time with them. They're just fun, little comedies, and they're cheesy, but they're great. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm Film Talk with Mikey, and until next time, guys, we'll talk films.